All right, here we are in chapter 15, and we're looking at nutrition support and supplemental feedings in this chapter. First and foremost, if possible, we want to provide real foods and not supplemental foods. So we're looking at if a patient or resident needs to increase calories or put on weight or prevent or treat pressure ulcers, we'll want to do a high protein, high calorie diet. If they're on a restrictive diet like a carb counting or a heart healthy diet, we'll want to switch them to a general diet right away so that we can increase the palatability of the food and increase patient acceptance. So if we need more support than just high protein, high calorie, we can look into some enteral formulas, and the majority of them you'll see in brand names like Ensure or Jevity. And the standard formula is 1 calorie per milliliter. And they'll come in 8-ounce brick packs or 8-ounce cans. So in 8 ounces, is 240 milliliters. So 1 can or 1 brick pack is going to be 240 calories. Now, we can increase the calories. Some of the formulas are called, for instance, Ensure 2.0 or Ensure High Calorie, and that would mean that there's 2 calories per milliliter. So then we would double the calories, and that would be 480 calories. There are also specialized formulas that we can use for people that have diabetes, renal failure, liver failure, or lung dysfunction. So, for instance, with diabetes, it would be a lower carbohydrate formula. For renal failure, it would be a lower protein if they aren't on dialysis, or a higher protein if they are on dialysis. It would be lower in potassium and lower in sodium. And then for liver failure, that would be high calorie, high protein. And then for functions like COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, it would be a high fat, low carbohydrate formula. The advantage of these are that they can be controlled and measured in the amounts of nutrients versus just mixing together a milkshake. Here, with a can of Ensure or a can of Nepro, for instance, which is a renal formula, we know exactly what they're getting in terms of measurements of nutrients and calories. The disadvantage is that some people say that there is acceptance issues and cost issues. So if you've ever had to buy any of these, you know that they can be close to $2 or $3 per can. And then the intake of them should be documented because oftentimes people get tired of the taste and they just stockpile them in their rooms and they're paying for them. So it is a challenge. So other things we can do is we can make a milkshake with the Ensure or Carnation Instant Breakfast. So we're combining foods that would be in our kitchen with foods that would be supplemental, like those tube feeding formulas. And when taking foods or liquids by mouth is not possible and the GI tract is functioning, we may have then a feeding tube placed. Again, you need to have a functional GI tract, and this is only when the client isn't consuming enough calories. The tube could be from the nose to the stomach, which would be an NG tube, or the nose to the duodenum, which would be an ND tube, or excuse me, ND tube, or an NJ tube, which would be a nasojejunal. Now, these are the nasogastric, nasoduodenal, nasojejunal. Those are temporary because, as you can imagine, having that tube threaded through your nose, it can be rather uncomfortable. So we don't want to have someone long term utilizing that N or that nasogastric. So candidates for tube feeding would be someone with severe swallowing problems, little or no appetite, impaired GI motility, intestinal resections, someone who is mentally incapacitated or in a coma, or maybe they just have really high nutrient requirements and they can't meet it with just oral